All right, guys. So I should have done this story earlier this week when I first saw it. However, it's a good thing that I didn't do it, right? Because a few days later, after I first seen this story, right? A story about the White House, aka Biden, holding briefings with major newsrooms, right? Journalists, news reporters, right? To basically try to reshape economic coverage, okay? Basically try to get major news channels to change the way they're talking about the economy. After that, what I've seen over the past few days has been downright scary. Okay, it is probably the scariest thing that I've seen in a long time. Okay, and considering how Biden is handling the whole vaccine mandate thing, plus him doing this, right, which is him basically trying to create state-owned media, right, media that literally adheres to the state, which is some dictator type stuff. I never want to hear a word come out of a leftist's mouth about fascism, right, in Trump ever again, because again, this is just downright scary. As again, the Biden White House is literally asking the press, begging the press to stop talking about the economy negatively. Okay, so let's read this real quick. White House quietly tries to reshape economic coverage. The White House, not happy with the news media coverage of the supply chain and economy, has been working behind the scenes trying to reshape coverage in its favor. Senior White House and administration officials, including NEC Deputy Directors David Kamen and Bharat Ramamary, along with Port Envoy John Pocari, have been briefing major newsrooms over the past week, a source tells me. The officials have been discussing with newsrooms trends pertaining to job creation, economic growth, supply chains, and more. The basic argument that has been made that the country's economy is in much better shape than it was last year. I'm told the conversations have been productive, with anchors and reporters and producers getting to talk with officials. So this was done on December 6th. Now, just a few days later, I want to show you guys what the media is now saying about the Biden economy. Take a look.
All right, first of all, to me, we have the strongest economy perhaps I have ever seen. See that number this morning, the unemployment number? It's the best in years, not best in 69. We have all spotted the endless help wanted signs, the housing and apartment shortages, the tremendous demand for goods and services, a marvel to behold. Oh, people are confident about their jobs. I say fantastic. And the ability to even get better ones if they want to. They're spending more than I've ever seen, but they're doing it with cash, not on credit. They're doing so in a roaring 20 stop.
Big economic relief for millions of Americans who have been dealing with soaring energy prices. Cost at the pump finally easing up, with the national average for a gallon of regular falling to $3.35, the lowest since October. Just look at that.
Bruh, so you have Jim Cramer, okay, who's supposed to be a finance guy, okay? He comes out here and he says that we have the strongest economy that he's ever seen. He compared it to the roaring 20s, guys. Roaring 20s. We have a supply chain crisis. We have unprecedented inflation that I'm literally going to talk about here in a little bit. But the main takeaway here is that inflation is so bad that it is outpacing any type of growth in wages that the Democrats love to brag about, right? The Democrat argument has been, well, it's a good thing that people don't want to work. It's a good thing that we have a record amount of people quitting their jobs and not really trying to find jobs or get more jobs, because that is going to lead to employers increasing their wages to attract workers, which is going to result in people getting paid more, right? Higher wages. And that sounds great to the layman, right? Somebody doesn't know any basic economics. However, if inflation, right, the cost of goods rising is outpacing wage growth, then that means that people actually are making less money because they can buy less goods, right? Even though they have more dollars in their pocket, if those dollars are worth less, then they don't have more money. They're not richer, okay? They're not actually richer. So, yeah, that is happening. All these things are happening. However, this guy, Jim Cramer, is sitting here trying to tell us that this is the strongest economy he's ever seen. Okay, I want people to understand this comes right after the Biden administration went to the media and told them, look, Y'all need to stop talking about the economy negatively. And you also have Don Lemon coming out here acting like a few cents drop in gas prices is some type of divine miracle, right? That has been bestowed upon us from the Biden administration, right? This is not a coincidence, guys. This right here is the scariest thing that I've seen in a long, long, long time. When you have the government, the state, telling the media how to cover news, right? How to talk about the administration. That is basically state-owned media. That is what fascism actually looks like. That is what an autocracy actually looks like. That is what a dictatorship looks like. Biden is flat out trying to be a dictator, guys. And I'm saying this not just based off this, but just off other things that he's done, particularly the whole vaccine mandate. This dude is a flat out dictator. If Trump would have went to the media, literally had his people go to the media and be like, I don't like the way you're talking about me, right? You have to change the way you're talking about me. People would say, flat out be saying that the dude is an authoritarian dictator, right? I mean, they're going to say that regardless, but I'm just saying. Biden does that and it's, well, you know, they just want more positive press coverage, right? Again, this type of stuff, again, it scares me. This is the type of stuff that people actually should be concerned about, and nobody's going to talk about this, right? Nobody's going to talk about it except me, and that's why you should keep watching my channel, because I'm going to talk about things that other people don't want to talk about, right? So let's actually read about inflation here. U.S. inflation reaches a nearly 4-decade high in November as strong consumer demand collided with pandemic-related supply restraints. The labor market said Friday the Consumer Price Index, which measures what consumers pay for goods and services, rose 6.8% in November from the same month a year ago. That was the fastest pace since 1982 and the 6th straight month in which inflation topped 5%. Okay, so this is the highest rise in inflation since 1982. And it's been 6 straight months of inflation topping 5%. But remember, the Feds told us inflation would be transitory, right? Transitory, they said. That's what Jerome Powell and Janet Yellen told us. Okay, and I've been saying this literally since April or March, that I don't think it's going to be transitory. And the clear and obvious reason why now is because, one, we still have these easy money monetary policies coming from the Fed in which interest rates are historically low. But what happened was that it is obvious that with that last COVID-19 stimulus package, Biden poured too much money into the economy, an economy that quite simply was not ready for trillions of dollars to be poured into it without having people actually go back and work. Okay, that's the problem. And he's still out here disincentivizing people to work by pushing fear in regards to the virus. Again, that's part of the reason why we have this global supply chain crisis, is because people simply don't want to work because of the virus, right? COVID, that and the restrictions that come along with it. So that's causing a lot of factories stress, okay, because they can't find workers, because they have to implement these new policies, these restrictions, stuff like that. Again, it makes it so they're less efficient. They can't produce enough goods and services on time to meet the demand that comes along with pouring trillions of dollars in the economy. See, the Democrats love to brag about, oh, we have strong demand, right? And we do have strong demand. They're right about that. People are buying more stuff, more goods, particularly. However, that's not necessarily a good thing when you don't have the goods to meet that demand, right? That's not necessarily a good thing. If you had the goods to meet that demand, then that would be great, right? But we don't have the goods to meet that demand, which is why we see shelves empty across the country and we have this supply chain crisis, right? I mean, this stuff is not that hard to really figure out. But, you know, for whatever reason, the Democrats really want to frame this as, because we have strong demand, you know, that's partially driven by the fact they poured trillions of dollars into the economy. That's a good thing, right? This is the strongest economy ever. You guys are talking about it the wrong way. When really they're not really telling the whole story, which is that we don't have the goods to meet that demand, okay? And that is what drives up the cost of goods, okay? Because now suppliers and producers and small businesses have to charge more for goods and services because supply is scarce. I mean, this stuff is not that hard. The so-called core price index, which excludes the often volatile categories of food and energy, climbed 4.9% in November from a year earlier. That was a sharper increase than October 4.6% rise and the highest rate since 1991. Geez, I wonder why Jim Cramer has not mentioned the inflation numbers when he was talking about how this is the strongest economy ever, right? He wants to talk about historic highs. He's talking about unemployment, even though, again, there's a lot of people that's just not even participating in the labor force anymore because, again, they've been scared off because of Biden fear-mongering about the virus, right? He wants to talk about that in the history there, but he don't want to talk about the historic high inflation, right? When talking about the so-called strongest economy ever, right? It's the roaring 20s, according to Jim Cramer. The November prices trend came before the emergence of the Omicron variant of COVID-19, which poses a new threat from a pandemic that is well into its second year. Again, that's kind of a big deal because now they're fear-mongering about the Omicron variant. And if that causes more, shutdowns and for people not to work, again, we could continue to see this type of inflation. We could continue to see this supply chain crisis because of this virus. But mainly really the fear-mongering about the virus, right? So again, this could happen literally every time a new variant comes up, okay? On a monthly basis, the CPI increased a seasonally adjusted 0.8% in November from the prior month, about the same as October's 0.9% increase. Prices for vehicles, rent, furniture, and airline fares rose last month. Some energy prices showed signs of easing, but gasoline rose by 6.1% for the second straight month. Prices for recreation and communication declined in November. Now, one thing I want to say about gas. Yeah, don't be surprised if you see gas prices go down, but it's really simple why they're probably going to go down over the next few months. Is because production from OPEC and non-OPEC sources is predicted to outstrip demand, especially if, again, we see more shutdowns due to this Omicron variant. You're definitely going to see gas prices fall a lot more. I mean, kind of like what happened last year when the virus first came, gas prices fell because people weren't going anywhere. They weren't driving. There was low demand. Okay, so prices fell. When demand went up, when they reopened the economy, prices went back up, okay, because demand was up. But production wasn't necessarily there because OPEC wasn't producing as much. And also, Biden has disincentivized U.S. Oil companies to produce with his green energy policies. I'm just saying, don't be surprised if gas prices do go down, but it's mainly due to market forces, not necessarily anything that Biden's doing. Quote, "These are frighteningly high inflation numbers, the likes of which we haven't seen for decades," said Alan Sinai, chief global economist and strategist at Decision Economics, Inc. Despite the high rate, he said the main driver of inflation is a good thing, a booming economy. Okay, this is a Democrat talking point right here. Quote, "We have tremendous spending by consumers. A lot of people are getting hired. Demand is huge. Monetary policy remains very easy, and fiscal stimulus has no precedent in history," Mr. Sinai said. So basically, he's making an argument. Again, what the Democrats make is that, well, because we have, high consumer demand, that means the economy is doing well. It's booming, despite the fact that wages have not compensated for inflation. It's one thing if inflation was rising, but wage growth was outpacing inflation. Okay, you could make an argument, right? I could hear you on that. But if people are making less money, right, if they're actually losing purchasing power, then how can you sit here and tell me that the economy is great? It doesn't make sense. It is hurting the average person in the pocket. Now, rich people like this guy, he might be able to get away with it, right? He may be able to put his money in places that will be able to outpace inflation that regular people don't have access to. But for normal, regular, everyday people, a rise in prices like what is happening right now is definitely not a good thing. 60% of small business owners said they had increased prices in the previous 90 days, according to a November survey of more than 560 small businesses for the Wall Street Journal by Vintage Worldwide, Inc., a business coaching and peer advisory firm. 80% of the companies surveyed reported increased labor costs, while 72% said that suppliers had raised prices. The November unemployment report signaled continual improvement in the job market. The unemployment rate dropped from 4.2% from 4.6%, with 1.1 million more people employed in November than in October. The Labor Department said consumer spending has also remained strong, advancing 1.3% in October, the most recent government figures. Again, even despite all that, we still have a record number of job openings, which to me suggests that people simply don't want to work. Right. And one of the reasons why they don't work is because Biden is not incentivizing them to work. He's actually disincentivizing them to work by fear mongering about this virus. Right. Every single time a new variant comes up, the market tanks a little bit. We start talking about more shutdowns. We start talking about more regulations, things like that. That, in my opinion, is what's really continuing to drive a whole lot of this supply chain crisis, this inflation stuff, is continuing to fearmonger about this virus. At some point, we have to get back to normal everyday life and simply live with the virus, right? We have the vaccines, live with the virus, right? Just make things go back to normal. That probably will be the best thing to help the inflation crisis, that along with the Feds, raising interest rates to try to not have so much easy money in the economy. And of course, for the government, the federal government, to stop spending so much money. Those are probably things that would help inflation. However, again, we will see what happens, right? I don't see the Democrats stopping fear-mongering about the virus because for whatever reason, they seem obsessed with trying to make Big Pharma rich. But let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share. A Black conservative perspective. Peace.